Call to order the public hearing on short-term rental law. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion?
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Real quick, just some ground rules, I guess. We're going to limit public comment, try to limit it to 4 minutes apiece. Again, if we don't have a full house right now, so if you go a little bit beyond, that's fine. But let's try to be respectful to everyone else's time. Do you want to go over this? You want to give the summary now?
Sure.
All right, so real quick before we begin the public comment section, Trustee Winward will give an overview of the law, and then I'll just give a short update on some changes that we made last meeting. So go ahead.
Okay. So everybody in the room seems to be very familiar with the law. Just for the record, we will just give the highlights of the summary of the current version of the bill, which is the subject of the hearing this evening. As Mike said, we discussed some additional edits at the last workshop we had last week, and we'll talk about those separately. So, first, in order to apply for an STR permit, you would have to have the unit pass inspection. Short-term rentals may only exist in approved residential units, including 1-family, 2-family, 3-family, and accessory apartments. No vehicles, sheds, trailers, rec rooms, campers, garages, tents, or other temporary structures. The number of Class A permits, we increased from the initial 5% discussed of housing stock to bring it up to 15. We added a new Class B section of permits that would be unlimited if kept to 2 one-week-long rentals per year of no more than 14 days.
Just to go back one bullet point, it went from 5% to 7%, which now equals 15.
Correct. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't know what I said. And so that increased pretty significantly the amount of permits that we were allowing previously compared to the 12 for only regular permits. The number of days owners must reside in Nelsonville per year is 185. The number of days a unit may be rented out is 100 days total per year. Must provide at least one off-street parking space. Mike's going to go over a suggested edit on that. Guests must follow all village codes, including noise and other quality of life ordinances. Must provide emergency contact info of owner or designee, who must be within a 30-minute drive in case issues arise. Maximum occupancy will follow state occupancy and applicable fire and building codes for the number of bedrooms of the home. Additionally, no more than 2 adults per bedroom. For gatherings, no more than the maximum number of guests issued for the permit will be allowed while operated as an STR. An STR may not be rented for any other purpose, commercial or otherwise, such as concerts, weddings. If you are holding a gathering and you are not running an STR, or you're not doing it as a commercial for-profit that weekend or whatever, God bless. That is not applicable here. If shared a driveway that does not already have an easement in place, must have permission of co-user property owners. Only 1 permit allowed per property. Must have resided in home for 1 year before one can apply for a permit. Registration applications must include proof of general liability insurance of not less than $500,000 per occurrence, identity of title owners of the property, proof that property owners occupy the property as their primary residence, emergency contact info of owners and designees, total number of rooms proposed for short-term rental use. Inspections will be required. Enforcement, first violation, $250 fine, second violation, $500, third, $750, and forfeiture of permit for 3 years. Every 10 days, the violation continues. After an order to remedy shall be an additional offense. Fees, initial registration of the unit would be $250, and a renewal would be $150. First inspection free, second or more $50. So, and just also to summarize, this has been a long process that the board is engaged in. We've had an open and fair process, I think, since last October of 2020, where we started asking for feedback on that survey. We heard from a majority of residents who were in favor of introducing permitting requirements. Over the last year, the entire board has worked really hard together to try to make it a fair and effective law that really works well for our unique community, while also setting reasonable parameters to protect the quality of life of our residents. It also allows folks who are interested in sharing their homes to do so for profit, which I think is a fair balance, personally. The current zoning code, well, we don't have to get into that. So, okay, that's all I wanted to say.
All right, I'll give a quick summary of some changes that came up in our workshop last Wednesday, I believe it was. One of them was, and this was phrased as kind of a letter to our attorney, so I'll try to reword it as best I can. One was on parking. The bill asked that there be at least one off-street parking spot, but that would preclude some folks without a spot to apply. We'd like to add an exception if your lot is not able to have a parking spot. So that is dealing with some houses on Main Street and other areas of the village that do not have their own off-street parking. Clarifying the definition of definitions of renter between a month-to-month long-term renter, and also making it clear that the STR law would not apply to someone renting over 30 days. So that was kind of a gray area that was brought up in our last meeting that we're trying to address more clearly. The addition of a severability clause, so that if one section of the law is challenged or is, challenged, that it won't impact the other sections. Number 5 was the exterior section. There was a section in the law as written that dealt with the exteriors of buildings, which really doesn't have we don't have any purview over anyway, and it was just superfluous, so we were going to remove that. And then this is the big one in my mind, is one permit per property. We would like to enable owners who have up to 2 approved legal dwelling units on their property to rent out either unit under the one permit, so that if you have a legal 2-family or a main house and a guest house, both are covered by one permit. Is that all of them?
I think so.
And then the other one was we were discussing as a board the effective date of the law. Right now, we were talking about January of 2022. We're now thinking more in terms of June 1st, 2022, or even January 1st, 2023, just to give more time for residents who are impacted by the law to make arrangements and considerations for that. And also, from our side, to allow other regulations in other municipalities to have some time under their belts and see how they're playing out, to be completely honest and transparent with everyone.
And also administratively to get things ready, because now would be a short time frame to do a Jan 1.
So beyond that, just some procedural things. Tonight we'll hear from the public on the law that's written. There are some changes in there that I just spoke about that haven't been incorporated into the law that is on the website right now. We're speaking with our attorney to see how many changes we need or can make before it becomes basically a whole new law and we have to go through this whole process again. Right now, we're probably okay in that we're just making minor adjustments to it. Beyond that, I think that's everything, right?
Yeah, it's currently with the county department of planning.
Yes.
Because any change to our zoning code has to have approval at the county level as well.
Yeah.
So we haven't heard back at all from them, but whatever edits we continue to make, we'll have to bring to them as well.
And just to put it out there, we were discussing this earlier. So tonight we're going to have a public hearing. We'll close the hearing. We'll keep accepting correspondence for the foreseeable future. We're not going to pass this between now and next month, so it's going to be an ongoing process as we draft it. More than likely we'll be back here as another public hearing at some point, just to kind of dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and make sure that everything is above par. With that being said, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people here this evening. So if Melissa, you want to call out a name, we can start off, and let's try to kind of keep it to the 4 minutes if we can.
Sure, okay, so we can start with Rudolph Van Donnelly.
That's me. Mike Donald, 17 Avenue Ridge, for the record. Well, I think we had a few meetings when this has been discussed, and I think I've asked some questions that still haven't been answered. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to get an answer to that, but I would like to ask it again. This is a question Sonia wrote a letter back in February after the first. And thank you. It's probably maybe a moot point because, as Sonia wrote in a letter that she sent today, she states that it looks like the train has left the platform, and that's probably, it looks like that's the case. But I'm trying to find this letter, and I'm sorry, I'm a little bit, there's so many things in here. Okay, I'll improvise. Basically, what she asked in her first letter was, what are documented instances of complaints that this law is trying to address, and how is this law going to resolve these issues that exist, supposedly? Because I only had one documented complaint that I've asked for that was available to me a few months ago. Maybe there's other complaints. Apparently Bill has received complaints regarding my property. I still haven't been able to see these complaints or haven't been told what they are or from whom, which is a little disconcerting. It seems like it's very, I mean, we feel attacked, obviously. It's me, the Timps, and there was the house next to Cachetta. I don't see the Cachettas here. I think they have given up their listing. So that problem seems to be resolved. This is a whole lot of law for very few problems, in my opinion. And I would still like to hear what are some of the documented complaints that brought this law along, and how this law is actually addressing those complaints, fixing these issues. I would like an answer to that. I don't know if this is a question and answer session, or if I can just make comments that are being recorded, and that's it. I mean, I wanted to have
Why don't you get out like all of your thoughts in your 4-minute time thing, and then we'll see if we can.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of it. I wrote you a long letter, and I see it's attached here. Very nice for everybody to see. And Sonia wrote a letter too. And I think I spent some time on it. I poured my heart out, and I let you know how I feel. And I hope that you all can put yourself in my shoes, and how would that feel if there's a law that is being proposed that seems very targeted, and I don't know if is that just me, or is that fair to assume that this law is really. Trustee Maloney has made suggestions. Maybe put in something. There is zoning for different zoning districts in this village for a reason. We have 5 acres behind the school. There are lots that are, postage stamps. This is in a small village. Maybe the same rules do not need to apply to the same to these different situations. Has that been considered, or does that seem?
It's been discussed. Yeah, I mean, it came up at our workshop last week,
Right.
and kind of the compromise that we came to as a board was allowing that 2-family or multiple dwelling parcel to have more than one permit, as long as it's a legal
Right.
2-family or something like that.
But that's across the board, so that would
Yeah.
apply in the village and
Yep.
and up by us. So that's not really. So maybe the law has to be written for everyone the same, but the zoning is not that way. The zoning law is not written for everyone the same. There are different zoning districts, and there are permitted uses in certain ones, and not permitted uses in others. So I don't know. I feel that if there's a problem with our operation, so to say, then I would like to know what the problem is and why this law is being written to correct whatever problem there may be. If there is no problem, then maybe if this law is really just like a preventative measure to keep things from happening, like Chris has voiced concern about houses being bought up and being turned into zombie hotels. I don't see it happening. It hasn't happened in the last 10 years. Not one single house has been bought up for solely to be used as an Airbnb or temporary rental unit. So that seems unfounded. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't actually said that exactly, but.
Well, when we had our conversation outside last, you said.
Other folks are concerned about zombie.
Right. People could be concerned
residences,
about
but
that.
I'm more concerned with a time period that will pass with no guidelines in place, and
Yeah, and you said that.
but it doesn't. It's not only to the zombie coast.
Right.
It would be if all of the guidelines are important to me, not just that folks live in the community.
Okay, but
We'll circle back.
Okay, yeah.
Let's go, we'll go to the next person on the list,
Yes.
and then we'll take a second swing real quick.
Okay, the next person on the list is Erin Muir.
Hi, I'm Erin Muir. I live at 18 Cedar Street, next to Rudolph. One question I had, I listened to, but did I miss the 100-day restriction is still in place? Is that correct? So a question I have is the logic behind the 100 days, and I'm just trying to understand where that number comes from and why. It's- Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you want to answer that, or do you? Okay.
Or sorry, do you want to do?
Or should I just?
Why don't you? I'll take notes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So that's a question that really is lingering in my mind. And then, in terms of just Ethan will say a lot, but something that I have just been thinking about is what an asset to our community our Airbnb has been. And I just thought I'd give a few examples of that, how it's really been beneficial to our family. And to the community. So we've had two friends who are in Cold Spring residents who have families who are renovating. They've stayed in our house in the Airbnb while they're renovating. Their kids can just go to school. They don't have to pay for a hotel. We've had grandparents who had elderly mother living in the village who died, so they don't have any place to stay here anymore, but they have an attachment to here. They don't live here anymore. They were so happy to be able to come stay, and then they could go visit their grandchildren who live kind of around the area. We've had grandparents coming to stay while there's new babies in the village, and the grandparents want to stay, but they can't stay in the house. So that just feels like real. And then the other piece is, for us, we do kind of environmental education with our property, and we love the flexibility because we're able to, have community discussion around things that are important to us in that space. Also, when my mom wants to come visit, she gets to stay in that space. So it keeps it flexible, but also keeps it affordable for us. Something else that's really important to me that Ethan will bring up is our family was a victim of a crime in Cold Spring, rented to a long-term resident. So, and at that time, Ethan's mom came to live with us and stayed in that space. Because the way we designed our house, we designed it to be temporary because we don't really want anyone to live there like they own it. We want them to live there like they respect it, they're here, they're on vacation, they're in a good mood, they're happy, and then they go. We don't really want them, a neighbor who's this close to our house. So we kind of, in our financial plan for our property, included Airbnb because it was allowed at the time that we bought our house. So that part feels really important, and feels important to me just with kids. I don't really want a person to be there all the time that I don't know them inside and out, and just the whole part about the crime is that, that was someone who was vouched by Houlihan Lawrence as a full-term resident, attacked my mother-in-law in her apartment, and then she couldn't go back to her apartment because he got to stay there because the law was working and she was needing to hide from him. And so she got to stay in our Airbnb, which was good that it existed. And so I just feel like it feels so community-focused in the ways, and we've, of course, had people come stay who are there for a weekend or a week, but we've just found that they're really lovely. They're on vacation, so they're happy. And Airbnb vouches. Like, you have to have, it has a whole list of, yes, they've stayed before, they're kind, they're friendly, they're clean. We are we're having these people be on our property. I don't want anyone there who's like untoward or not going to be an upstanding person, you know? So all of that is really a big part of it, and just feels like actually a really amazing sharing economy that's kind of a way to think about land rights and property use in a more open-minded and thoughtful way that just gives people more access to places that they might not otherwise have access to. There's not a lot of places to stay in the village. And then lastly, I just feel like it's a strange infringement of rights. Like I am not a lawyer or very up on laws, but it just personally feels like a strange overreach for it to exist that the government gets to say it. I understand for safety and health, safety, welfare, but in the case of this, I don't see that being affected. So thank you.
Do you want to speak to any of that, or?
Yeah.
I mean, there's the one that struck me is the difference between the Airbnb rentals and the sort of longer term stays that you had with like Ethan's mother and the other people in the community. That's why we're trying to address that with the Class A and Class B type of permits, where there's no limit on the Class B if it's up to a 2-week rental. And if it's not a rental and it's friends staying there or something like that, I mean that has nothing to do with this law.
Right. Right.
It wouldn't add.
But
to
it's
your
the
days
point is that we built
limit
like this thing that we could afford to have the luxury of having that space, right? It gives us the ability to have those space.
So the bill doesn't prohibit anybody from having a short-term rental. Your rental sounds great, it looks great, like you're doing great things. It's wonderful that you have this available in the community. You would not be allowed to see that.
It's not viable
Except
at
the
100
100 days, then with the 260 other days, the 265 other days, it's just sitting there not paying for itself. How does that work? And why is it 100? Why couldn't it be 50 days off? Or something?
We, from the other bills that we have looked at, Beacon, Irvington, Cold Spring is much shorter than ours. I think they landed on 50 or 60 days. But other municipalities are using 100 as kind of a benchmark that would allow every weekend to be used as a short-term rental,
Okay.
or all summer long, 3+ weeks, 3+ months. From my perspective, and I don't know how others feel about it, I think the bill is really important to protect the rights of folks who aren't renting, who are living next door and nearby, who
We're living next door.
don't feel, who didn't purchase their homes with the expectation that they would live next to a commercial establishment.
We live next to a cemetery in Rudolph.
There are dead people at Rudolph. And actually, you can't even see Rudolph's house from our house. Like, you can't even see him. I can't even see him. So it does feel silly. Like, we literally live next to a cemetery. And there's a house kind of catty corner that you could see maybe through the trees. So I don't know. I guess that's Rudolph's zoning thing that feels important. So as I'm hearing it, it is because other municipalities chose that 100-day based on people deciding that it was fair enough for the weekend or the whole summer, which is less than a third of a year.
Correct.
And it has been a topic of discussion amongst us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're hearing people's thoughts tonight.
Yeah, I understand. It's obviously important and feels just, and I guess another question, and I know I'm done with my time, but can it be a vote? Could we all vote? Could that happen? Like, could it just be like, this is a bill, everyone vote on it in the whole village, and then it's done. It's not you guys deciding, it's a democracy. Like, that's a question I really have. Like, why do you guys get to decide? I'm sorry, I know we voted for you, but...
We have held hearings for an entire year.
But what about a vote where you ask every person? I'm just asking why it can't be a vote.
Could we have a public referendum on it? It is.
I'm pretty sure that anything can be put to a passive referendum. So
Yeah.
I think if you get X number of signatures, I don't know what X is, but
Okay.
you can have
It's only a third of the voting public if they sign a petition.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think there's certain instances where, like on our marijuana opt-out, it's a, I forgot what the technical term is, but it is one of those in which you can have a voter referendum attached to it. But we can certainly look into it.
Cool.
It would make our jobs easier.
Yeah, like why does it have to all be on you? Just put it out to everyone. Here's a little note. Vote
But I
on
mean,
this.
it's kind of why we're elected is to.
I understand. No, I understand that. I guess it feels like what if everyone if it's because it's affecting individual neighbors and all the things, then the vote seems really helpful. And then we use the law to help keep things intact that don't feel like they're being operated in a good way, or meaning like where laws are being broken.
The law that would go before this theoretical referendum would still be drafted by us. So, I mean, it would be an up and down vote on whatever we decide finally on this.
Right. Okay.
I just wanted to kind of, address a little bit of your concern that this is a government overreach.
Yeah.
The reason why it's pushed down to the locality is because of zoning laws. Federal and state governments can't impact a local municipality's zoning laws. Yet they're allowing this gray commercial business existence to happen in residential properties on a local level.
Right.
And that's why municipalities around the country are having to develop their own legislation to try to put in some sensible guidelines so it doesn't get out of control.
Yeah. And so then I guess I just say like the idea where we just didn't have a cap on our time would be amazing. Because that seems like a real financial restriction that really changes it for us specifically. And then so if there does have to be a law in place, that 100 days just feels so unfair, I would say. And the part where you say that some people have to live there, I think that seems like a good idea. Like if the person has to live there, meaning for a certain time of the year, maybe they leave and go to France for 2 weeks and they Airbnb for that time. But so that then it's care, and if like I said, if it's in your own backyard, you care. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's up next?
Ethan, Tim.
Hi, everybody. I prepared a little bit to read sort of as a public comment, which I guess I could submit to the board and assembled people. The ability of our neighbors and friends in this community to share their homes with trusted people and for time periods determined by each individual and not by a government is an extension of rights held deeply by the patriots who fought on these Hudson River shorelines, some encamped just yards from where we now sit. We have the right to peaceably assemble in our own homes. We have the right to communicate securely and privately, independent of government interference. And we have a freedom from unreasonable searches and from government-imposed quarter regulations. Furthermore, we expect to exercise these rights as long as they do not impinge upon the health, safety, and welfare of others. These outward impingements, as expressed in various documents and comments submitted during these proceedings, building safety, noise, trash, parking, traffic, etc., can all be addressed independently using existing state and local statutes without creating a new layer of government bureaucracy. This is not the time for government infringement on citizens' constitutional rights to free speech and assembly or due process, nor is it a time to begin chipping away at sacred values of individual freedom and the liberty of the individual to safely, securely, and privately enjoy their individual properties. As Aaron mentioned, my mother was recently assaulted by her neighbor in the village of Cold Spring. Her neighbor, who recently pleaded guilty, was not a short-term renter. He was on a year lease, having been vouched for by Houlihan Lawrence as a viable tenant. The argument that short-term rentals are unsafe is a false and insulting smear being used to wrench sacred property rights from homeowners in Nelsonville. It was because of the flexible nature of our own attached apartment rental arrangements that we were able to provide safe haven for my mother in a time of great distress. And I want to just go off my written remarks and point out this 100-day restriction would make this type of arrangement financially unviable for us. So the notion that it's just sort of a number to play with it is erroneous. While my mother was living in fear and in hiding with us, the perpetrator of the crime against her was living comfortably next to her old apartment, secure in his year lease with while the gears of justice inched forward until a protective order could be obtained, which took many months. Through the review process on social sites such as Airbnb, guests come with reviews from their previous stays as well as verification of their identity and other safeguards. They also have an incentive to be good guests and good neighbors so as to secure the ability to continue to use people's homes in this manner in the future. It is the short-term nature of the stays by which we maintain the safety of our own home. At this point in time, when we feel unsafe in our own community and we have young children at home, we have no interest in sharing the attached apartment we so lovingly constructed with long-term tenants. While this may change in the future, how is it in the best interest of Nelsonville or Nelsonville residents to force us against our will to do so? This is not the time for Nelsonville to pursue arbitrary legislation without a valid stated cause and without knowledge of its effect. I brought the copy, but you probably have never seen it, but the village's own survey data on the first page indicates less than 50% support. Sorry, my printer didn't go that well, but for most of the proposed STR regulations and tepid support for the rest. Furthermore, the village's own data indicates that at least 4 residents indicated that they'll lose their homes if this legislation is passed. Before embarking on unpopular regulation that could throw village residents out of their homes, it is vital that the village have a clear understanding of what the impacts, both intended and unintended, are. Village residents should not be forced from their homes because of hearsay and theoretical conjecture. And lastly, I just want to say that I don't believe this is a good time for Nelsonville to embark on big government, small business killing regulations. Speaking personally, when we constructed our home beginning in 2018, we complied with all applicable zoning and Putnam County Department of Health ordinances in the state and local building and zoning codes. We have taken pains to create a home which is consistent with the values of the comprehensive plan and with hillside residential regulations. Part of the economic viability of our construction plan was to comply with, I think it's part A.5, A5.5, which allows the letting of rooms, which is currently allowed by right in all village zones. And we should consider the passage of this local law and its limitation of rental days to 100 days per year of regulatory taking, in that it would make the continued legal use of our property economically non-viable. I urge the people of Nelsonville to take note that the village board is attempting to take away a right that they currently hold without having presented valid argument for the urgency or efficacy of doing so. The residents of Nelsonville may want to exercise this right today or tomorrow, and when they decide to do so, they will realize that that right has been taken away from them while they weren't looking. I'll stop there. I know my time is up. But I'll submit the rest in writing. Thank you.
If you could, please, we'll post everything to the STR section on the site. Is there another?
There is David Herman.
Sure. So David Herman, I live at 246 Main Street, up the road. I will not go over, I've submitted a letter that I think is posted on the website, and I spoke at a meeting a few months ago, so I won't go back over all of what's in there, other than to say that my family is very supportive of the legislation and the regulation. We have a number of concerns about the potential proliferation of Airbnb in our community. My first comment is, I think, quite honestly, as you all have worked hard and tried to, it's clear to me that you've tried to listen and respond to some of the feedback you've gotten. And it's pushed almost to the point where, honestly, I think it's become more permits than we would have liked. The unlimited nature of the 2-week or less permits is far more than we'd like, but I typically look at things when you're in like a negotiation. When both sides are a little unhappy, it usually means you're getting to the right place. But I put this into 2 categories. There's the just sort of memorializing what anyone that wants to take advantage of Airbnb should be doing from a safety, permitting, quality of life, noise. reading the regulation, I don't think there's anything in there that is surprising or an overreach. It's what the law currently mandates if it's just a residential property. So I know you say you haven't gotten complaints. I can tell you, we live through the woods, and we have on a number of occasions heard noise from events. We don't call, we don't complain, it is what it is, but that's already taken care of. And I don't think anything that we've seen in the regulations is anything other than saying, for this other use, you should be abiding by all of the things that you should be abiding by if it was your property. On the number of permits, what I'd say is the combination of clarifying anything 30 days or greater is not covered. Anyone that wants to come in and rent for 1 or 2 weeks for West Point graduation, not covered. Plus an additional 15 permits for full-time, call it sort of semi-full-time. Seems like a lot. I don't see where there's going to be an issue here with lack of capacity for people that want to take advantage and apply for a permit. And our position has always been, when you put in place the regulation, we would much rather start and see if it's actually a problem. It's always easier to increase if over time it appears that more permits are demanded by the community, and you've had sort of like this test case of this is what it means. Is the insurance the right amount? Do we need to, sort of like a pilot program? And in that case, it's, we view it as much safer to start with what is a smaller sample size, because we don't think, based on what we've seen in the community, it's going to prevent anyone that wants to take advantage from taking advantage of it. I think the one you raised, the 100-day cap, and I appreciate your specific circumstance, it becomes a problem. But I do think you need regulation. Now, this is a little bit of a one-size-fits-all. You can't just say it's 100 days except for this particular case. You can't do that to the board. You can't do that to the building inspector. And it's easy to say, as the homeowner and renter, I bet my people, I much prefer people to be cycling in and out every week. I can tell you, as someone that's not doing that with small children, it is the complete opposite. And it's unfortunate that it sounds like your mother-in-law had a horrendous incident with a long-term renter. But for someone who has kids in the neighborhood, I much prefer knowing who my neighbors are and limiting the number of people coming in that aren't part of the community. And so 30-plus day renters are much more known. And so the 100-day cap, I think, is a limiter to minimize the number of strangers coming into the community. And I know you know your neighbor now, but he might sell his house, and someone might move in that has small kids that has a problem with it. And so I think you need to, you're sort of like the collateral, I don't want to say the collateral damage, but I think there are concerns that some of us have that the 100-day cap, address. And I'm sorry that it doesn't work for your particular situation. But I don't know. And then you can read my letter, which was long-winded and hopefully not too heavy-handed, and is posted on the website. But thank you. I know this has not been easy, and it's been long. And
Thank you.
yeah.
Is there anybody else on the list?
There is not.
I'll just run through, like David just mentioned, a few letters of correspondence, and just for or against, and then everything will be posted on the website. The first up was Alexis Dean and David Herman in support of the STR law, and that is posted on the website. Second was Dablowski, 11 Secor Street, in support of the STR law. We'll get that up on the website. Donna Stelz, 2 Fishkill Road, Nelsonville, New York, in support of the STR law. I'll get that one up on the website. Rudy Mondamle against the STR law. I believe this 13th letter, so this one's not up on the website. This was actually an email to the board. Do you want that shared?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll get that up on the website. Kelly House, I believe she's at 2 Crown Street, in support of the STR law. I will get that one up on the website. This was Josh and Jenny Kaplan, against the STR law. That one is not up on the website. We just got that on Sunday. I'll get that one up. Matt Stelz, 290, Kerry and Matt Stelz, 293 Main Street, in support of the STR law. I'll get that one up on the website. And then one from Sonia, and I don't want to butcher her baby name. Rizrisky, right?
Yes.
I will get that. It's against the STR law. We just received that literally 10 minutes before the meeting, and we'll get that one up on the website as well. That was all the correspondence. We also have on there already a letter from Ethan, the letter to David I just cited, a letter from Nick Taylor, and another letter from Sonia. Any other public comment for the public hearing? If you want to take another quick stab.
Well, I asked a question. And
About the complaints?
Yes.
Yeah, so you have foiled the office and there were non-documented complaints except for one, I guess, from the years.
Right.
So that is your answer.
Okay. And
That they were not documented in writing, although lots of folks have approached us over the years.
right.
And I mean,
I'm not gonna-
and I will defer to the building inspector. Complaints don't have to be in writing.
Why does it say that in the code that they have to be in writing?
Because it would be for court purposes for this
Oh.
law.
So
Which
if this
has not
ends up
been
in
enacted
court,
yet.
then I'll get to
I mean, as it stands now, if someone violates their zoning or building code and someone goes to Bill and says so-and-so has a 8-foot fence and the code is 4-foot fence, 6 feet, whatever it is, do I need to make that complaint in writing, or are you going to investigate it without?
If it's a complaint that there is, we've been made aware of it, it's no different the way I look at it than you saying that this person passes the school bus every day, and then on the next day that person gets caught. The complaint's still there, it's valid, okay? So we look into it, and the same thing. Somebody makes a complaint, or they make us aware, we look at it purely from the standpoint, did it occur or didn't it occur?
Right, and then you would write a report and keep a record.
No, I don't necessarily write a report, depends on what the complaint is.
I mean,
I
I don't want to
think
get
we
technical
started-
about it, but there is a code here that you're supposed to adhere by. You just wrote a whole new law with, I don't know how many pages, but very carefully chosen wording so that it's clear what the law is. And if I read the code here, it says 188-59, the zoning enforcement officer shall investigate all written complaints of violation of this chapter and shall maintain a file thereof and the action there taken thereon. That's what it says in the code, so.
Keyword written.
Yes, keyword
Okay,
written.
and what it's doing is, it basically, having been in this business for several years, what it does do, it's a guideline for the person enforcing the laws, that when he gets a written complaint, he has to enforce it.
Right.
Okay? If it's a verbal complaint, it's a little different. We still enforce it, we still look at it, okay, depending on the severity or the way we handle it. There's so many complaints come into the office.
Do they?
On many things. On many things. I mean, many things like the person put up a fence and I got the bad side of it. You know?
Right.
I mean, I've gotten those. Okay? And I'm trying to think of something else. But what it comes down to is that in some cases we write it down because it may be resolvable by a phone call. And we've done that. Or an informal letter. We don't make
These complaints are trying to be resolved with a whole new law.
well,
That's a little bit different. And on top of that, I mean, Sonia said it, I've said it again, if we get a complaint from our neighbors, we take it seriously. We want to make it right and make sure that it doesn't happen again. We need to know what the complaint is. and this is all like cloaked in anonymity. We're not able to. Everything is anonymous. The survey is anonymous. Like this all seems like it's all just made up stuff. David Herman has concerns. I don't hear anything like this and this happened, and this is a direct result of this Airbnb activity, and we can't have it. We need to make a new law. It seems just very arbitrary and really not really necessary. Like I don't know how
So,
to.
can I just answer that for a second?
Sure.
Okay, I think what you have to realize too is that these are neighbors of yours, and sometimes they feel it may not be, and this is throughout the whole village.
Yeah.
Okay, it does not just necessarily you. I get complaints about people dumping in their backyard.
Yes.
It could be to anything.
Yeah.
So what happens is they'll come to me because they really don't want to have a bad relationship with their neighbor, because it can go the wrong way real quick. Okay, so what they do is they come to me, they make me the bad guy. Okay, that's fine, that's my job. And I come there and I explain to you what you're doing wrong and ask you to remedy it. Okay, that's where government comes in. I have a rule, government really, in my job, I can't either blatantly permit or blatantly, deny. My job is to enforce what laws there. If there's no law, it's tough to enforce things. Okay, and it's not fair to those people that are not getting benefit from it.
And just to speak to the code, I mean, I'm just flipping through it on the website now. A lot of this code is outdated to begin with. It's written in the 90s and 2000,
Yeah.
2003. It was updated here and there.
Right.
It's something we need to take a look at in its entirety, and Bill is well aware of that. This law is meant to get ahead of something that is there and is coming down the pike, and everybody realizes it. It's no coincidence that numerous small towns all over the country have enacted regulations on this.
Yes, I'm aware of that. And
Yeah.
I get them.
Also, if we were the only municipality, I understand where you're coming from. It's not targeted towards you. If we were the only municipality in 1,000 miles that was doing this
you're
just
the
to
only
address
one.
your issue,
You're the only one that decides who's doing it.
Say it again?
You're the only municipality of the size.
Well,
that
we're
we
a
are.
unique municipality. We are attached really to the village of Cold Spring. We're a tourist center.
Right. But in all, I hear what you're saying, and there's maybe valid concerns, but the data doesn't show that. The data doesn't show that Airbnb is on the rise. Actually, quite on the contrary, according to Chris and Dove, when I talked to him first, there were somewhat like 14 or 15 Airbnbs 2 years ago. Now there are 3.
Well, the key thing there is pre-COVID.
Well,
so
let's see.
We're not in normal times right now, and who knows if we're getting back there or not. It's...
Let's see. But the current trend is not. It doesn't really underpin the argument that you are making that this is getting out before it gets out of hand. It's not getting out of hand. It's actually getting less so because, and also before people are buying up houses to turn them into, that's also not happening.
We were just discussing this earlier, and the initial kind of impetus behind the whole thinking of this was that we had a business operation going on in many buildings in the village that was against our current code. And that code was written, I don't know, it still speaks of basically renting out rooms to foundry workers.
Right, yeah,
89 years ago.
that's clear. That's not.
So, it had to be addressed.
Right. But
So-
but it's being addressed like with
to David's point, and, I'm not comfortable with it all. I don't think Chris is comfortable with it all. I don't think Dave is comfortable
with
with it all.
comfortable with it all, but
Can I ask a quick question?
We're trying to find that middle point and
So
that's
in
why
terms
I
of
think
middle
we've
point-
discussed this so much for the past year.
yeah, but I think a lot of the,
We really do. I hope you don't feel like we're ignoring or taking what you're saying lightly, because we're taking into account everybody's.
right, but I don't see any of that reflected in the changes that are being made. Like, there's a very big concern about the 100-day limit. That's definitely, it's also a concern.
And that's
for me.
been something we've discussed. And again, to David's point, I have people stop me on the street that don't think 100 days is enough. Like, it should be
Somebody
less.
today, at First Main, they're completely against STRs.
Yeah.
But the question I guess in that is, and it's really interesting, I guess the vote thing seems so interesting again, because it's just the people who are hearing of it have the time, are being, stopping you in the street, know you, okay. And then the other piece is that is there, so I love that podcast, 99% Invisible. We're designers, like, we all live in design all the time, and the origins of the rules and laws we abide by are sometimes absolutely ridiculous and also arbitrary, but they become the rule. So I actually just want to say, like, if you had someone coming on just the weekends every weekend, you would have people there for a night. They're actually, it's a different mentality than if they're going to stay 3 or 4 days. It actually changes the feeling. I guess the thought could be, I would love more of an understanding, like, this municipality did it, like, the part where we're doing it because other people are doing it doesn't seem like a good answer. It seems like,
And that isn't our answer. We really worked hard to create a law that was unique to our community.
Oh, when I asked the question, you just said it was because
basis.
of other municipalities.
We didn't reinvent the wheel. We certainly looked at what other municipalities had already recently passed as a guide.
Mm-hmm.
But we worked very hard to make it our own.
And then, I guess, is there any realm in which, if we're in a different zone and we are not, like, what if you asked all the people you could see, can we have an exemption from the 100-day? And then we could, and then if someone moves next to us who's not Rudolph and they're like, yes, we only want you to have it for 100 days, then we could do that. Like, is that an option?
It's really not fair.
Okay.
Well, to me, I don't know if this is an open session, but I don't understand how we're now saying that zoning distinctions are unfair in the sense that it's clearly different. Where, like, our situation is clearly different. And I would feel like I'm speaking like as collateral damage in this sense, but it seems as though this feels like it's forcing us to live next to people we don't want to, whereas because we live in a more open zoning, whereas I can understand potentially if you're right on Main Street it's the other way. But I want to just ask 2 questions, I guess. No, one, because no one has ever answered my question is, how is it possible, and this kind of speaks to that collateral damage, which I find to be kind of I think, if this is about creating neighborly values, that's a kind of a terrible thing to say to one's neighbor, to call us collateral damage. But my question is, again, in the survey, 4 people clicked a button that said that they are going to lose their homes.
I don't
if this
really
happens.
remember that. Can you?
It's on page.
Can you read exactly what it says?
I'm
It
looking
says-
right here. It says, if you
it
are a
says-
host of a short-term rental, do you rely on this income to make ends meet? Yes, the income allows me to remain a homeowner in Nelsonville. 4 people clicked that at 40%.
That's your
That's
interpretation.
40%
Got
of
it.
the people doing it.
48 people skipped the question.
Well, assuming because they're not
Yeah, but
doing
10
it.
But 19 people answered other.
And I was curious actually what this please specify, but I'm just surprised if any, like, I don't like traffic, but that doesn't mean we can't, well, we don't say we'll ban cars. That I might come to a meeting and say maybe we should, but that's not really what we're here to talk about. But the notion that these people on the street tell you that they want to ban it, and those people might want to ban it, is much different than when you're saying that people are going to lose their homes. And I don't see how that, if this is continually pointed to as the justification for what is going on, that it can be ignored. Who are these 4 people who are going to lose their homes? And how can this just be passed with unknown reasons, for what seems to me arbitrary lengths of time, and people are going to lose their homes over it?
So,
I've never heard anyone
I mean,
say that.
just for complete transparency, that's been a concern of ours. I've asked that of our attorney. We asked of our attorney. There is clauses within the law that you can come and make
I didn't see a grievance clause. I looked
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, there is. I mean, Village of Cold Spring just had one for their STR this past month.
But there is a grievance clause in this?
I think there is for any law, really, not specifically this.
So that's the thought, is that people who are about, how would one prove they're going to lose their home?
That's something that we're working through.
And hearing your concerns is why we're also recommending to extend the effective date, is so that folks can readjust their model of rental
Sell that home.
or do a long-term rental.
Or sell, if that's, because they don't want long-term, I don't want a long-term rental in my house. That's out of the question. So, yeah, it's restrictive. If I
And,
can
and
only,
you also, and then the other adjustment that we're recommending is that if you, since you have two
I have two
legal
units.
residences
Yes.
on your property, that
Yes.
you would be allowed to rent out either. You would, it wouldn't be,
That's-
it would be one permit for either.
greatly appreciate that. That's really nice.
I thought, I honestly thought that would
No,
relieve a lot of the
Yeah,
concerns.
I mean, it's something that I've asked around a little bit. So this renting out the home, as Ethan said in his letter, for any length of time seems to be a vested right that we have, and that is now in danger of being taken away for no good reason, in my opinion. Maybe some people are afraid that things are getting out of hand, or maybe some people hear noises from the events, probably from my house that you hear, because and where you live, I don't know who else has events around here, but or maybe the school. But anyway,
Let's focus towards the
well, I think that's a right to rent it out for a week, for a month, for a year. As of now, it is. I have done it. We had tenants in the apartment for 2 years, one tenant for 1 year, then 6 months mixing it up, and now short-term rental it works great for us. It's like, we're not bothering anyone. I don't understand why that right would be taken away from me, maybe as a collateral damage. I mean, that seems, yes.
And this is the problem, because there is a small piece of the community that is, I understand, adversely affected. But your perspective is as the person renting. And I don't know if I'm the only one here that's not, right? I'm the side that the law is supposed to help regulate. Put aside the safety and the strain on village resources, which is real. But I understand you're saying, your perspective is, as a renter, I much prefer the shorter term renter. Well, I'll tell you, as someone in the community, maybe you take a poll, maybe not everyone has the same opinion, I much prefer the longer term. And so, we just have a different perspective on that. And I can tell you, there's nothing you'll say that changes my mind on that. And in terms of, you're taking away the right, zoning, then you have a problem with this country, because zoning is real everywhere. When we were looking at the community, there was the other house we were considering buying is right next to Juanita's. Amazing house, great yard. But you know what? It was next to a restaurant. And sure, it's a restaurant, and it's a great restaurant, and when we were there and it was raining, the owner let us in the rain, and it's a great restaurant now, but you don't know what it might turn into. So zoning exists. It's not like this imaginary something that I think is trying to be imposed on people. And the community cares about it, and as much as you've made decisions on what to do with your home based on some plan and expectation of what you would do with that property, there are others in the community that have made similar investments in the community based on its expectations of zoning. And so
Zoning
I'd say,
existing.
I don't think that there is anything right now that my neighbor, are you going to tell me, maybe Bill knows, my neighbor who's getting their place ready, maybe it'll go on them. If they drop a trailer in their backyard and Airbnb that, is that permitted in regulation right now? Okay. So
The letting of rooms and stuff,
So I think regulation is required, and so again, it's not like it's regulation for regulation's sake. It's regulation because right now there are practices that are not allowed, and this actually would allow, and put in place the structure to monitor it, enforce. So I just think it's a different perspective. I get where you're coming from as two of the 4 or 5 people in the community that rent, and I think there are real concerns from those that are not. And I get that we just have different perspectives, but I don't think it should just be gloss over. This isn't collateral damage, may have been the wrong phrase, but I just think there are reasons for the regulation. And the way it's been designed, I'm hoping it doesn't adversely affect either of you. And if it does, it's only because it's part of a bigger set of regulations that's addressing everyone.
All right. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify the letting of rooms component of our current zoning code. It states that the letting of rooms in a dwelling unit shall be limited to 2 people, and the persons shall reside in the dwelling unit. Again, this harkens back to a bygone era where people were coming and working at foundries, etc. That does not give folks the right to have STRs. That is not what it is addressing.
That was actually written then probably to address this whole idea of a flop house where you could have people just coming in.
But there's nothing in the code about renting an apartment or a house.
Or a time frame.
Or a time frame. There's nothing in the code that says you can not rent this apartment for less than 30 days or this house for a year or 2 years, or there's nothing. The letting of rooms is pretty specific. It's letting of rooms, a room in your house. You can't put a kitchen in
reside to 2 people. To reside, live there.
To reside there, okay.
Not short-term.
It doesn't say anything about short-term. If it doesn't specify, then you can presume that it's allowed. Am I wrong?
It's a unaddressed area of the code which this law is meant to address.
Right. So let's, if you're going to do a law, make it fair and don't do it with a light touch. If you're trying to correct something that is not a problem yet, that is just based on fear, unless, I don't know if you actually have problems. These problems, complaints are very few, right?
Yeah. Well,
So,
yes.
so let's write a law that maybe address these problems, or use laws that are already on the books to address these problems. I don't think anybody needs to have new laws that are so restrictive and that people will lose their homes, possibly. I don't know. It seems very heavy-handed to me. And
I want to say one thing. Hypothetically,
Just say who you are for the record.
Dennis Zenz, I live on Main Street here. Hypothetically, kids, okay, if you do a short-term rental, somebody who is a non-resident out of town for a weekend or a week, is that the definition of running a hotel? Or is that a residential use where the person moves in and resides?
so in my case, people that come to my house, that stay, they come as my guests. I connect with them on the
I'm not
website.
talking about that.
Okay.
Does that fall under the definition of use as
Of a hotel? Well, I don't know. I think hotels are open to the public.
Well, isn't it open to the
No,
public?
my place is not open
People
to the
book
public. No, people
A
can
dwelling
always.
unit for a short period of
No,
time.
I vet them, and I either allow them to come, or I allow them not, or I disallow them to come. It's not open to the public. It's a big misconception. I am not running a commercial operation that's open to the public. These people are my guests. They stay with me. I
Well, if you
entertain
advertise
them.
it online, isn't it open to the public?
No, it's not, because they have to contact me first, and then I can either invite them or not.
Okay, well, I guess we're arguing over definition.
Well, that's what
If
you're
you
asking.
define that-
You're asking me.
That's the basis of all law is
Right.
what is a definition
Yeah.
of certain.
You are asking me if that's the definition of a
And it's-
hotel. I disagree.
I don't want to
Yeah.
diverge into
Yeah.
kind of arguing in the audience, but I mean, I feel like we've kind of exhausted the room tonight, and again, like I said, this isn't going to be decided by next month, so, or, next, maybe 2 months, who knows. Is there anyone on the dais that has anything that they'd like to add? Trustees? At that stage, I feel like everyone has had a chance to speak. We've gotten the letters again. We will accept correspondence to the board again, indefinitely on this issue. And I just want to reiterate, please don't feel like we're not taking everything into account, because everything is written, everything is read that has been written to us, and everything is being taken into account. There's some very healthy debates going on among the board. So that's all I can
Thank
say.
you. Thank you for your time.
And at that stage, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Motion. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. So that will close the STR public hearing for this evening. And we're just going to kind of roll right into our regular meeting agenda. So if you want to stay, feel free to. If not, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks everybody for
Thank
taking
you,
the time to
everyone.
come out.
Thank you.
What'd you do to your finger?
It's like, so it's, I think, maybe trigger finger? It's like a ligament thing, so it's
Find out when he's going to
hard to put down one.
So it's like one?
Yeah, like, you know, like, over the course of the day, I can start bending it.
We're meeting Wednesday.
Yeah, where you push there and then
You were going to do this meeting. Actually, what
Mike, do you want to give me that correspondence? Or do
I'm
you,
going to give it one.
you want to put it on the website, some of it, right? I guess I should
Did it
scan
work?
it in.
If you can, do you have a digital copy?
I got it right there.
you can move it, does it hurt?
I do. Well, yeah.
It's not sore or anything? And now it's like gotten a little better, so they don't want to do anything and see if it'll just...
We'll take care of that. Because I gave you some stuff you needed to do.
So,
Down here, yeah. Thank you.
In the interest of getting out of here at a reasonable hour, anyone opposed to starting the meeting? I was noticed in the web and everywhere else that we can start right after that. Hey guys, if you want to discuss, can you go to the room because we're going to start the meeting?
I'll see you on Wednesday.
Good night, everyone.
All right, call the order of the regular meeting of October 18th, 2021. All please rise to the pledge of the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First up is the approval of the vouchers. They've all been reviewed, signed, and approved. Are there any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the vouchers as presented?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Approval of minutes. This is for the, September 20th, 2021 regular meeting. I didn't have any real changes, substantive changes. Does anyone have any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented by the clerk? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Correspondence, New York State DOT CHIPS reimbursement. This is just a breakdown of the current cumulative rollover balances and the appropriate balance. Let's see. So CHIPS, the rollover balance $16,579.45. Paved New York $10,987.61. The EWR $9,558.40. Add that to the appropriate balances of $27.30 for the EWR, $32.93 for Paved New York, and $12,351 for CHIPS to get a total balance for CHIPS $28,930.94. Paved New York $14,281.58, and the EWR $12,289.37. Just real quick, we will be using part of this to do the paving of Spring, Secor, and Crown, which was slated to begin next week, but now is being pushed to the first week of November. Correct? Second week of November. So pray for good weather and no snow. New York State Department of Public Service regarding the Comprehensive Broadband Connectivity Act survey. So this is a survey being sent out by the New York State Department of Public Service on broadband connectivity and the availability. I went on and did it myself. Asked some very general, generic questions about your access, speed levels, costs, your broadband. So everyone go and do that survey. We'll link it to the website, and hopefully it will open up some competitors maybe to the current offerings here in the village of Nelsonville. Phillipstown Trail Committee, Phillipstown Bike Day thank you letter. That was just a letter from the Trails Committee thanking me for being the crossing guard. And it was a pleasure, and
Excellent job.
it definitely made me even more cognizant of the traffic issues that go on out in front of the village hall. 5 reports. Do we have anything? The only thing I'll say is that the visit to the Westchester County Center that Larry Burke organized, I had to reschedule it because of a work conflict, so it's been pushed back.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, he called me, and I literally just gotten called in to go down. So he's going to reschedule with me for some time, probably in November. So I'll let everybody know what the new date is, and hopefully we can make it work to get down there and take a view of it. Any other reports from trustees? You did the garden cleanup across the street?
Yep, garden was a good success with the help of the Phillipstown Garden Club, and thinking of something else actually to chat about. ARPA. I know that Phillipstown is going to be having a hearing this week. Jason sent us an email about that. It's open to everybody's suggestions on what the Phillipstown should be spending their $700,000 on. But as soon as we can, we need to be discussing what we're going to spend our $64,000 on.
Let's put that on our next workshop, so everyone brainstorm between now and then.
Great.
All right. Any other reports?
Melissa and I went over the other day what Mark's function's supposed to be coming up.
Yep.
Did he stop in for that, Melissa? Mark?
I have not heard back from her.
I spoke to him on the street. He was in receipt of our email. He removed the stop sign that we asked him to do. The worker that you guys walked around the park with never told him the scope of work for the park, so he was going to take care of that this week. And that was about it when it came to that. He also addressed the bushes on Secor that were overgrowing the street as well. So,
How about
start.
I just want to further identify the potholes on Healy as needing to be done
Yeah.
sooner
I
than later.
discussed that with him. He said he's going to go up there with cold patch right now.
Yeah.
Put anything on him, just so it stops.
Right.
The-
Just want to make sure it gets addressed before.
The one issue is that he took the stop sign out of Secor when you're coming from Crown down, the one that was there, so there is no stop sign
He's
there
going to
right
put
now.
one back. When they put that stop sign in, they put it in the street.
Yep.
And
He took it out now in
move it.
anticipation of the paving happening next week.
then it's going to put it when he puts it back, it's going to go in the sidewalk.
We may want to put a temporary stop sign on a caisson or something out there, just because right now there's no stop sign, so people are going to
We
go
could
right
put
through.
something there. Well, I thought Charlie was going to come this week when we took it out.
Yeah.
Now he's coming in 2 weeks, so we'll get something back in there.
Yep. Any other reports? You want to just give a
Court
quick
audit.
thing on the audit?
Yeah. So we audited the court account for the last fiscal year. There wasn't really much there because there was no court for most of last fiscal year, but the 2 months that we did hold court, everything added up there. However, there has been a carryover balance in that account for several years, and nobody really knows where it came from. It's probably old parking tickets, but unfortunately there's no paper trail to go all the way back, and that account is not supposed to carry a balance. So we are going to confirm with the Controller's Office that it's the right action to take, but proposing that we get that money out of that account, whether it means going back to the state or maybe we'll get lucky and they say we can keep it. But
I think it's a testament to the village of Nelsonville that how many thousands of dollars of it?
it was $1,400.
So $1,400 has stayed in the account for 10 years and no one has touched it. So
Right.
it
No
has
wrongdoing
not-
has
has
been
not
taken place with
disappeared
the
or
funding.
anything.
We just don't know what to do with it.
Let's go for, let's see, so old business, STR.
Do you mind if I just, I know I don't want to open up that can of worms, but
Yep.
in case I'm indisposed next time it comes up, just wanted to make one observation and share an idea that came to me while we were going through the hearing. So it seems like the 100 days provision is kind of a big sticking point on both sides. So I'm wondering if one thing we could consider discussing is looking at a number of reservations rather than number of days. In that, because then that would sort of limit the churn, which seems to be a concern, especially for folks that are living in very close proximity. To kind of anchor it on that, like every weekend, benchmark, it would probably realistically be about 100 days for most people that are renting on the weekends. But for those who choose to opt for longer reservations, they would basically be incentivized to accept longer reservations. So it would still be the same amount of people in and out, but would give those homeowners who are accepting longer reservations a little more flexibility to rent for more nights.
So would it still be 100 reservations, or what would the number of reservations be?
That's what I would suggest. The rationale, again, being it's 100 days, or it'd be 52 reservations. I don't know, I have to think about the exact number, but I think that's something I'd be interested to, hear from others too, if that solves some of this problem from like the limitation to those who are renting, while also, again, limiting the churn to neighbors.
I would have to model some numbers on that.
It's something to discuss.
I just wanted to, I don't want to open a can of worms, but
I mean, that,
busy next time.
from
we
the
talk
tone
about
of the discussions earlier, it runs the gamut from basically any law is a bad law to there is some wiggle room. So yeah, it definitely, like I said at the end of the public hearing, again, we'll revisit it and see if we can come up with any further compromises. We've already made some that I feel are big steps towards making people happy. So again, I don't know whether the days or reservation numbers makes that big of a difference, but it's definitely something we'll look into. Anything else on STR?
No, for those of you who didn't know that there was a 6 o'clock meeting on STR. I don't know, Mike, you want to recap real quick?
We had an hour-long public hearing. We're not making any decision on the law between now and next meeting, so if you have any further comment, which we're very well aware of your stance on the law, but feel free to submit a letter if you want. We're working with the attorney. We have some substantive changes to the law, but we're not sure if they're going to trigger us having to do a whole other public hearing or whether we can incorporate them into the existing law. But I mean, we're not making any decision in the next, couple weeks.
Did you change the one law that said they have to have lived here for at least a year before they could do it?
No.
That hasn't changed?
No. The only real big change was that instead of limiting it 1 unit per tax parcel, if it is a legal 2 or 3 family, you can have up to 3 on one parcel, correct? Or is it 2?
It was up to 2 on one parcel.
Yeah. So
for
if you have a 3-family
residents.
home, there could be 2 there. Yeah.
Right. And that would apply equally throughout the village. There are some folks who have multi-unit apartment buildings, and that would be the same as if you had a 3-acre residential with two separate units on it.
Is that just a placate, Marie?
No, no, it's not.
No.
Uh,
I don't know, since you guys may not have known that we had the hearing, I don't know if you guys would like to say something particular, or if you were planning to, but missed your opportunity, feel free to do so kind of thing, or wait till the end of
yeah.
our meeting here to have some open.
Wait for the public comment, and then
Yep.
if you want to say anything for the STR law specifically, we can edit it back into the original public hearing video or tape recording if need be. Nothing else on STR then? Secor Street paving and potholes, we just covered that. We were hoping to start it next week, but it's now the second week of November. We'll notice that to the residents well ahead of time so that, hopefully impact the parking situation as little as possible. Cannabis opt... Yep, go right ahead.
When you say you're going to notice it to us, what
You're
is
going to
that?
get a letter, it'll be on social media, it'll be everywhere.
Okay, because I didn't, if I hadn't asked Melissa, who was very kind to correspond with me about it, I would not have known that it was moved. And I know Dave told Melissa that it was moved, but I didn't find that out. Fortunately, Melissa corresponded with me, but I would really like to know in advance.
Did we send
How
letters?
many days in advance do you intend
Yeah.
to provide
So we
notice?
were at least 2 weeks. So we were waiting until we heard what the concrete date was. They were telling us it was going to be next week. I directed Melissa to send it out last Thursday or Friday, and they got to us at the end of close of business that day. Said they weren't getting to us until the second week in November.
So when you say the second week of November, what's the exact date that you intended?
We don't have an exact date or hour of the day that they're going to be there yet.
It could be any time, that Monday to Friday, on
Okay.
the second week, something. We're
Can
gonna
you just
put,
tell me in advance, because I would like to be out, I'm going to go to my appointment in the city during that period, and Joe's going to make sure that nothing happens to our retaining wall. I just don't want to be there, because I have to work. You should realize that many people now work at home.
yeah, but it's something we gotta get
It's going to
done.
be noisy.
It's not gonna be noisy. You won't even hear that machine go down the road.
It'll be
They're extremely
It's going to be
quiet.
pretty noisy.
there'll be a disturbance for a little bit as they go by. It's not nearly as loud as you think it would be when they're doing the milling. The machine is actually pretty quiet.
And I think Melissa told me it probably takes about 2 days. I don't mean to take up everybody's time for this, but can you just provide a little bit of information, just even if it's casual, just as to when it's going to start in the morning, just so, we both work at home.
Yeah, well, we know from Charlie, when he did the other streets, he started at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
So he
okay.
got there at 7 o'clock, and
that's
he
great.
milled all the roads the same day. So
Okay.
all the milling was done in one day.
Is that the noisiest part?
Then from
Okay.
after that, it's prep.
Okay,
You clean
great.
it, get it ready for the asphalt to go down.
And then the second day is a little less.
The second day would be prep day. To prep it, prepare it.
Okay.
Make sure it's, the round water turn-offs and things
Okay.
like that are in the way, all cleaned up, ready to go.
Okay.
So when you come into the machine, you just go right down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the more notice you can give us, the better. Melissa's been amazing about it, and I appreciate you weighing in on it too, but if you could just let us know a few days in advance.
Well, we thought it was going to be this week.
I know,
But Charlie,
15th and
when we
19th, but-
finally, we've already put the signs up for no parking.
Yeah,
And then Melissa finally got a hold of Charlie, and she said, "Oh, we're coming in 2 weeks." So
okay.
that kind of changed things.
Okay, yeah, I understand, but can you just, whatever notice you could provide would be excellent, so we can just arrange our affairs.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah, thank you.
I mean,
Thanks a lot.
that's.
Really appreciate it. I know it's not easy because.
We'll keep on Paul Hemus as much as we can to get a concrete date.
Thank you so much.
Under old business, the cannabis opt-out local law proposal and resolution. We got a draft of a law from our attorney. Again, the timeline of this is to adopt the resolution, and then schedule a public hearing, hopefully early in November, and then take a vote on it at our December regular meeting to allow enough time between then and the March election, so that if there is a petition that goes out among residents that they want to have a referendum vote on this, it gives them that opportunity. As of right now, it is our intent, I believe, to opt out, so that it would, basically the way the law works is that we need to opt out and then we can opt in later on, but if we don't opt out now, then we're forced into it by New York State.
An important detail of that too is there's still a lot of unknown at the state level about how this will be actually managed and enforced.
So real quickly, I will read the draft of the introductory local law. I guess it would be number 2 of this year? 3?
It would depend on what we've actually passed.
Yeah. So that remains to be filled in. A local law, well, let's see. Introductory local law number of 2021, Board of Trustees, Village of Nelsonville, a local law adopted pursuant to Cannabis Law 131, opting out of licensing and establishing retail cannabis dispensaries and/or on-site cannabis consumption establishments within the Village of Nelsonville. Be it enacted by the Village Board of Trustees, by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Nelsonville, County of Putnam, and State of New York as follows. Come on in. Section 1, legislative intent. It is the intent of this local law to opt the Village of Nelsonville out of permitting retail cannabis dispensaries and/or on-site cannabis consumption establishments within its boundaries. Can I help you?
This job report?
Nope.
Oh.
You're looking for the town of Phillipstown, up the hill.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Well, welcome to Nelsonville. New York State Cannabis Law 131 provides that a local law is required for a village to not permit retail cannabis dispensaries and on-site cannabis consumption establishments from locating and operating within a municipality and is subject to a permissive referendum. Section 2, authority. This local law is adopted pursuant to Cannabis Law 131, which expressly authorizes villages to not permit retail cannabis dispensaries and on-site cannabis consumption establishments to locate and operate within village boundaries. Section 3, local cannabis retail dispensary and on-site consumption opt-out. The Board of Trustees of the Village hereby opts out of permitting the licensing, establishment, and operation of cannabis retail dispensaries and cannabis on-site consumption establishments within its boundaries. Section 4, severability. If a court determines that any clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law or the application thereof to any person, firm, or corporation or circumstances invalid or unconstitutional, the court's order or judgment shall not affect, impair, or invalidate the remainder of this local law, but shall be confined in its operation to the clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law, or in its application to the person, individual, firm, or corporation circumstance directly involved in the controversy in which such judgment or shall be rendered. Section 5, effective date. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State pursuant to Cannabis Law 131. This local law is subject to a permissive referendum and thus may not be filed with the Secretary of State until the applicable time period has elapsed for a petition to be filed for a referendum by the requisite number of registered voters, or a referendum has been conducted approving this local law. Having said that, the resolution introducing cannabis opt-out local law. Whereas the Village Board of Trustees Board of the Village of Nelsonville Village has determined that it will consider a proposed local law to opt out of the provisions of New York State law that would otherwise permit cannabis sale and on-premise consumption of cannabis products in the village, and whereas Trustee Blank has offered the draft proposed local law annexed here 2 as Exhibit A to the Board and has introduced same for the Board's consideration. Be it resolved, the Board orders that a public hearing be scheduled by the village clerk with due public notice being published of said hearing in the official newspaper of the village. Said hearing to be convened at the location room of the Village Board located at 258 Main Street, Nelsonville, New York, on. We need to pick a date. November, let's see, our workshop would have been,
Sorry, so this is for the hearing, not for the vote.
yeah, just for the public hearing. Let's see, our workshop workshop would have been the 8th, correct? Or no, that's December. 10th.
Workshop is this 10th.
So shall we set it 6:30 on the 10th? Or do you want to just make it at 7 and just push our workshop back to afterwards?
Rather than having it on 15th as part of the regular.
We could have it on the 15th at 7 if we want. Does that work for everybody? Hopefully.
There could be a benefit of having it on the 10th.
All right. So convened at the meeting room of the Village Board located at 258 Main Street, Nelsonville, New York, on November 15th, 2021 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the business of the Board permits. And be it further resolved that the public notice of the said hearing shall provide the time and place of the hearing and an abbreviated summary description of the substance of the proposed local law. And said notice shall be published in the official newspaper of the village at least 5 days before the date of the said hearing. And be it further resolved that the clerk shall send a copy of the said proposed local law to the Putnam County Planning Office for the referral required by Section 239 of the General Municipal Law, with a request that the Planning Department submit comments about the proposed local law prior to the date of the hearing, and seeker documents shall be submitted to the board before the said hearing, if required by state statute, and the attorney for the village is directed to assist the clerk with preparation of the notice of hearing and its publication and distribution of the seeker documents. Be it further resolved that the clerk shall send a copy of the public notice to the town clerk of the town of Phillipstown and the village clerk of the Cold Spring, village clerk of the village of Cold Spring. So I need a motion, or I will make the motion to put forth the resolution. Is there a second by someone?
Second.
So put forth by Mayor Bowman, seconded by Trustee Maroney. The board members voted on the resolution by roll call, and the resulting votes of the board members were as follows. Mayor Bowman, yes. Trustee Winward.
Yes.
Trustee Maloney.
Yes.
Trustee Maroney.
Yes.
And Trustee Ziyanovich is absent. So 4 with 1 abstention, or 1 absent. And then I, Melissa Harris, don't want to speak for you. The duly appointed clerk of the village now attests that the attached resolution was approved by a majority of members of the 5-member board of trustees on the 18th day, October 2021. So again, there will be a public hearing November 15th at 7 p.m. to hear residents' thoughts on us opting out of the cannabis law. And again, everything is subject to a permissive referendum if enough members of the community get together with a petition to force a vote at the March election. And without any further ado, we will, or further delay, December meeting will vote to either opt out or opt in. New business. Do you want to give the Unified Court System Audit Resolution? Where is that?
Would you like me to read it?
You could, yes. I'm tired.
Resolution acknowledging court record audit. Whereas Trustee Maloney of the Nelsonville Village Board of Trustees conducted an audit of the Nelsonville Justice Court for the fiscal year ending 2021, and whereas Trustee Maloney found no irregularities in the documentation, and whereas there were findings of an overage in the Justice Court account predating the current court clerks, Trustee Maloney's recommendation is to turn the funds over to the Office of the New York State Comptroller, and therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of the Village of Nelsonville approves Trustee Maloney's findings, and upon motion by trustee, seconded by trustee, and acted for in favor, 1 absent, the Village Board of Trustees acknowledges that the audit of the Justice Court records for the fiscal year ending 2021 was conducted by Trustee Maloney. This is to certify that I, the undersigned village clerk of the Village of Nelsonville, have compared the foregoing resolution with the original resolution and minutes now on file in the office of said village clerk, which was adopted by Board of Trustees of the Village of Nelsonville on the 18th day of October, and that the same is a true and correct copy of said original resolution and the whole thereof.
I'll make the motion. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Do you want to read this, the audit report? Or do you want to? We already read this
Yeah.
at the workshop.
I give a summary of it.
All right, so that is everything for new business, old business. I have a resolution here, a memorial for Donald Graham, who passed away last week. Whereas on the first day of October 2021, Donald Graham, late of Nelsonville, town of Phillipstown, county of Putnam, New York, departed this life, and whereas Donald Graham, a longtime resident of Nelsonville, volunteered his time and served his community as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Village of Nelsonville from May of 1988 to February 1997, and whereas Donald Graham earned the respect and the admiration of his fellow citizens through his unselfish devotion to family and community, and whereas Donald Graham will be fondly remembered by residents of Nelsonville for his kind and gentle nature and the pleasant way he greeted all he encountered on his daily walks, and whereas we are mindful of the loss the village of Nelsonville has sustained by his death, and therefore it is hereby resolved that the Nelsonville Village Board hereby inscribes upon our minutes for our official acts and heartfelt sorrow upon the passing of Donald Graham, and that when we adjourn this date, we do so out of respect to his memory, and that we extend to his family our deepest sympathy and condolences in their bereavement. Donald did a lot more than serve on the zoning board. He was, him and his wife were both pillars of the community. Donald, hung all these pictures and did a lot of carpentry work around the village hall. He helped out at every major function that the village has had for the past 30, 40, 50 years. So he's going to be a big miss, missed by a lot of people in the village, including myself. Again, it's always hard to see those people like you grew up in a community with as they pass away. It doesn't get any easier. Anybody else have anything to say?
Yeah, that's a really great presentation. I'm glad that we're honoring him.
So we'll each sign this, and we'll send a copy off to his wife. There's one spelling error though, but we'll make the correction. I just circled it.
Okay, but don't sign it, I'll have to...
Yeah. We'll reprint it and sign it. That being said, open to the floor. Are you here for... You're not here for traffic court, are you?
No.
Okay, because we had one individual walk in for traffic court.
No, my name is Michael Edgar. I moved here about a year ago.
Okay.
I bought Bill O'Neill's house.
Yep.
And I spent the last year finally getting married, which was supposed to be pushed off by COVID. So
Congratulations.
I saw this was on the schedule. I thought I'd finally come by and see how everything works around here.
Okay.
Welcome.
Well, I'm sorry if you walked in late. We had kind of a unique schedule. We had a public hearing earlier on our short-term rental proposed law, and then
I see that.
And then we just rolled right into our regular meeting afterwards to kind of condense the business this evening. But welcome to the community.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions or anything or you're just here purely out of curiosity? Heidi?
Has it been held in person much since the pandemic started?
We came back in person, I guess, at the
Only 3 meetings.
spring.
3 official meetings.
Yeah. Trying to be as careful as possible, everyone wearing masks and vaccinations. Heidi?
Okay, so I just wanted to raise something about the village property across from the Nelsonville pollinator garden.
Mm-hmm.
So as you may have observed, so I cleared that area of mugworts and am putting down wood chips. And actually, I wanted to mention that, so Paul Hellbach gave me $50 for the wood chips. I mean, I didn't ask him, but So, be that as it may,
Yep.
he insisted. Anyway, I saw on the agenda, or Joe saw on the agenda, that maybe the village was gonna compensate. I couldn't care less, but if you are gonna, could you please give Paul Hellbach $50 for the wood chips? I ordered them from Garrison Trade.
Yep.
If you want a receipt, I can give it to you if that's necessary, but anyway, Paul handed me the cash.
I'm pretty sure
But-
Paul would hand our cash right back to us, but
Well, okay.
we can make the effort.
That's fine. But what I am concerned about is that I sent an email to the village asking that once the mugboards have been cleared out of that space, if we could please plant annuals in that area. And I was told that you, Mayor Bowman, said no. And I would like there to be some public discussion of that.
Yep.
Because
I didn't say no. I just said.
well, I was told that I could not plant annuals, and I
I told
understand
Chris
that I
the-
personally
yeah.
cannot. However, I think there should be discussion as to whether some annuals could be planted there, as opposed to just nixing it, because it seems to me that that's a great area for people to plant any kind of annuals. Like my daughter grows beautiful, it doesn't have to be native plants. I understand that the gate has to be available
So
for
that's
emergency
that's
access.
so that's the
Yeah, but I was told Heidi cannot plant annuals. I don't know why
I
I
can
was
look at
told
my
that.
email to make sure there wasn't just
No, I
that.
think
I don't
send
know.
me the email.
I don't think I
didn't
necessarily
appreciate-
was that cut and dry
spoke
about it.
It
But
seems to me that should be a village discussion because that's village property. And it would be beautiful if people could put their annuals there.
I understand,
Not me.
Heidi, but
Not me.
the issue here is that it's a right of way that needs to be
I
maintained.
understand, but do you understand the
No, but whatever you
What
plant
annuals
there
means?
is that if we need to access the Nelsonville
Annuals
Woods
are
through that gate.
temporary?
No, I
They're
get,
temporary.
I totally understand that, but
They can be tried.
next summer, if you plant them and then we need to run them over with a tractor, you're not going to be happy.
Oh my gosh. I think, okay, so Paul Hellbach said that it's only access every 10 years. There's no
Well,
reason.
the only reason I'm holding off on it now is because Mark needs to get his machine in there to grade the trail because it's going to be resurfaced with
I
item
don't
4.
think the trail conference plans to do that.
No,
I
they-
talked to them, and I do not think that they intend
They
to.
sent me the plans for it. They're waiting for us to purchase the material.
That's not what I heard from them, but that's fine.
No,
In
but
any event,
it's
once
up.
that happens, could we not plant annuals in that area? Couldn't there be a plan to plant annuals?
The,
Plant tomatoes.
when I
Whatever.
I
Tomatoes is great. I
I
agree.
talked to
Is there-
That'd be great.
is-
Let's
Can I-
use it.
Can I
Is there a possibility of putting a planter of some sort there that is movable so that they're not in the ground?
You know,
Barrels,
like container
something-
gardens?
Yeah, something like that.
If you want to, that doesn't make sense to me because the soil is rich, but okay.
I'm trying to stem off the conversation we're going to have eventually if there's an emergency call in the woods or there's a brush fire or anything like that.
Moving containers that are heavy would
No,
be a
but-
lot more difficult than just running over annuals.
Moving the containers than destroying the garden, which is going to be an issue as well. So
I don't see it.
another concern
Would there
that
not be a
Dave
vote for the
raised.
board?
Could I please
Yeah.
talk? Thank you. Another concern that Dave raised, which is a good one, is that we may need to push some of the snow into that area. And
Annuals are not alive in the winter.
we all understand this. So what my suggestion was let's do the mulch now and let's see what comes in the future,
Are you-
baby steps.
Okay.
Because it is an issue of access and we all love and appreciate all that you're doing to beautify our community. And I don't know why it's an upsetting level about access to a gate that we have to have access to.
there's many other areas we could plant annuals that don't impact the gate that we use to access the preserve.
Okay, I fail to understand why we can't have annuals there. But along the edges at any rate? That doesn't make any sense to me. We don't have that much village land. It seems to me we could put some beautiful flowers in that area that would be also
understand.
be used by pollinators.
I'll push back about not having much land. We have over 100 acres of land. That
Not very much of it is not wooded. We don't have very
Understood.
much meadow-like land. All right.
We can discuss it further if you want, but right now.
Maybe I'll try to solicit the opinion of the Phillipstown Garden Club. I think that they would agree with me.
Okay.
That's very unfair.
Is it?
You can ask the garden club, but they need our permission to do that.
I understand
online,
that.
So. But again, thank you for everything that you're doing. I'm sorry that upsets you, but I'm sure
Why
that
do you
there's.
say I'm upset? I'm just asking the board if they can consider it.
We are considering it. Is there any other public comment? Do you guys want to speak to the STR law since you weren't here for the meeting ahead of time?
No, as long as you don't change that one I asked about, I'm satisfied.
Okay. Any other public comment?
I have a question.
Liz?
The gate that you're talking about, is that the one on Cedar Street, or is that the one on the other end down by Wood?
No, it's the one right back here, North Pearl Street through our municipal lot. There's one back here by the kiosk right here.
Oh, I didn't realize there was an actual functioning gate there.
There were three
I walk
railroad
past it all the time.
three railroad gates installed when we first took over from OSI. This is a good report. I spoke to Tino Yanatelli. He's refabricating the gate that got crushed by a tree on Wood Avenue, so that'll be done hopefully in a month or so, as his workload slows down. Frank?
Yes, what about the brush pickup?
Yeah, that's another thing.
We got what, the week before and the week after Thanksgiving? Listen.
Mark hasn't gotten back to me yet. I'm going to follow up with him this week.
Yeah, no, that was, yeah.
That was on the list.
It'll be noticed. It's going to happen sometime around Thanksgiving. And then the leaf pickup will be after that?
It's all the same time.
Yeah. That happens over numerous days, though. It's not just
Just a
one
couple
day.
of Saturdays, they do the leaves pickup
We're-
and stuff
Yeah, I
like
know.
that.
Trying to coordinate with the leaf pickup just to not have him out numerous weekends.
You know, I remember when I was a kid, when we used to do with leaves.
Playing them?
We put them on the curb and burn them.
Yeah, well, you can't do that anymore. Any other public comment? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Oh, she beat me this
I let her.
I gave you a chance.
time. All those in favor?
I looked right over at her.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.